Chapter 12 is about general and special senses. We're going to see muscle and joint info, and special senses, vision, hearing, smell, taste. Both the sensation and perception of a stimulus occurs in the brain. There are two types of senses with the general senses, and so this is the information that's received from the skin, organs, joints, but we're also going to see from the muscle. And so for this one, know that the general senses pick up touch, pain, muscle, and joint info. Versus special senses, this is for vision, smell, taste, and hearing. What picks up the information are these receptors. These sensory receptors, they sense and respond to the different stimuli. So these can be either at ends of the neurons or they're individual cells near the neurons. There are different types of receptors. Know that the chemoreceptors, these pick up chemical concentrations. And so these are important for smell, taste, and oxygen concentration. Then know that pain receptors are called nociceptors. And so these are responding to tissue damage. Thermoreceptors, know that these pick up temperature changes. Mechanoreceptors, these are picking up touch, tension, blood pressure, and stretch. And the fifth type, photoreceptors, these pick up light information. And so how these receptors pick up the information is because special ion channels open due to the stimulus. So this changes the membrane potential. And so if enough positively charged ions flow in, this can result in an action potential. Or this can lead to an action potential in a neuron that's nearby. Well, so then this electrical signal is carried by our nerves to the brain and spinal cord, which is the CNS. Know that sensory adaptation means that we have the ability to ignore unimportant or continuous stimuli. And so here what happens is there's a decreased response from the receptors. This picture is showing how ion channels open due to a stimulus. So here in the first top picture, this is showing that touch is the one that's leading to these special channels opening. And so normally the inside of the cells is negative, but when the channels open, positively charged ions come in, and that leads to depolarization. Next, the different types of mechanoreceptors for touch and pressure senses. We have free nerve endings. These are in our skin. These know that they respond to itching. Tactile, or the Meissner's corpuscles, know both words. These pick up fine touch and texture information, and they also distinguish between 2 points on the skin. Lamellated, or the Pacinian corpuscles. These are deeper in the skin, more in the subcutaneous region, but so know that these detect heavy pressure and vibrations. Referred pain, and so this is if there's an issue with an organ, the patient is going to feel pain in an area that may not be right where the organ is. Well, this results from common nerve pathways in which the sensory impulses from the visceral organ and a certain area of the skin synapse along the same pathway. And so what I mean is, if you look at the picture on the right side, you can see that the signal coming from the heart, so here the neuron that's sending that sensory information goes along the same pathway as the neuron coming from the skin. And so then the nervous system perceives it as coming from the same region or from that skin region. Next, I have to talk about the proprioceptors. These pick up information from our muscles and the joints, the tendons, And these are important for providing us with balance information. Different types of proprioceptors, lamellated and Pacinian corpuscles. Know that these are the pressure receptors in our joints. Then the muscle spindles. These are the stretch receptors in skeletal muscles. And so this was actually covered in A&P1. This is if the muscles become stretched too much, then the information is sent to the spinal cord, and this leads to the muscle contraction. Golgi tendon organs. These are instead in our tendons. They look to see if the tendons are stretching too much. And so also we don't want the tearing of tendons to occur either. So know that these are instead stretch receptors in the tendons, and they're doing the opposite. This leads to the opposite action than the muscle spindle. So here actually this leads to muscle relaxation. And so this is done to take off the tension from the tendon. Picture on the left is showing the muscle spindle, how it's inside of our muscle, versus the one on the right is showing the Golgi tendon, located in our tendons. And here's the picture with the knee jerk reflex. Here, when the patella is hit with the reflex hammer, this leads to the stretching of the muscle. Information is sent to the spinal cord, and so then the spinal cord leads to the muscle to contract. And so again, this is to protect the muscle from tearing. Well, so information about balance, because balance is very important. We're going to see in just a little bit, eyes are important for bringing balance information to our nervous system. And we're going to talk about the ears, vestibular region of the ears. So those also provide balance information. And so then the proprioceptors. All the information is collected from these regions, and it's brought to the nervous system, and especially to the cerebellum. This is a recent study that looked at the information that's gathered by the cerebellum, and so they saw that the information from the vestibular system, but also from the proprioceptors were brought over to the cerebellum. So here, know the top part, cerebellum receives input from the vestibule and the somatic proprioceptors. Next, ataxia is a condition, an umbrella term, for lack of voluntary muscle coordination. And so this can lead to the person losing their balance. There are different types of ataxia. Acquired ataxia. This develops later in life. This is usually due to a stroke, multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis meant when the myelin sheath of the axons are getting destroyed by the nervous system, immune system, excuse me. It could be due to a tumor or vitamin deficiencies. Inherited ataxia. This is genetic due to a faulty gene. Sporadic ataxia. This develops in adulthood without a clear family history or known external trauma. This picture is showing the different symptoms with ataxia. So lack of coordination, eye movement abnormalities, slurred speech, trouble eating, swallowing, heart problems even, loss of motor skills, gait abnormalities, and poor balance, of course. These are tests done to perform or to see if ataxia is present. The DIP test, this is when the physician holds the finger, moves it, and so the patient closes their eyes. They're supposed to know which finger is being moved. The Romberg test, this is when the patient stands upright with their eyes closed. Are they able to stand upright without losing their balance? Then the finger, nose, finger test. This is if the patient can touch their nose, then the physician's finger, then back to the patient's nose. Next, we also have receptors in our organs. So visceral receptors, know that these are located in internal organs. And so these can be either mechanoreceptors or the free nerve endings. And so these typically pick up, for example, stretching information. After a meal, the stomach stretches, while also here, these receptors are activated and they're sending the stretching information to the brain. And so now the brain knows that the stomach is getting full. Okay, so then after this, we're going to start the special senses. And so here, know that the special senses include the smell, taste, hearing and equilibrium, and sight. We'll start with the smell. Know that the word olfaction means the sense of smell. And so here, the receptors that pick up the sense of smell, these olfactory receptor cells, they're actually bipolar neurons, and they have cilia on top. And so these are chemoreceptors. They respond to the chemicals dissolved in liquids. There are different receptors that respond to the different chemicals. Okay, know the order of how the information goes. Know that the olfactory nerves pick up the information, because these are the little branches. So the olfactory bulbs is where this enlarged region is. We'll see in the next picture. Olfactory tracts come after the bulbs. Then the information is sent to the limbic system. This is important for memory and emotions. Then finally, the temporal lobe for the smell information. And here in this picture, it's showing here the olfactory receptor cells. And so these are the special cells with the little cilia. So the nerves send the information up to the bulb. So we have the nerve fibers within the bulb. So then after that, we have the tract going to the limbic system. Know the word gustation means the sense of taste. So on our tongue, but not only on our tongue, but the roof of our mouth, lining of cheeks, and walls of the pharynx, we have taste buds. We have about 10,000 taste buds. Well, within these taste buds are taste cells. Taste cells are chemoreceptors. So know that they're located in the taste buds. So yeah, they're actually specialized epithelial cells, modified epithelial cells that function as receptors. Okay, so this picture is showing the tongue. So in the papilla, these raised bumps are the taste buds. So then within the taste buds, we're seeing in this third bottom picture, are the special taste cells. And so they have the little cilia, and there are also these supporting cells in between as well. Alright, so these different receptors in the taste buds, these taste cells, pick up the different information. If a sweet taste is encountered, that's because they're being activated by carbohydrates. Versus for the sour taste, the receptors are being activated by acids, but more specifically by hydrogen ion. Salty information, that's due to sodium or potassium ions. Bitter, this is due to magnesium and calcium salts. Then the umami taste, this leads to a savory taste. This is due to some amino acids, MSG, but I also know that this is the savory taste. Interestingly, spicy foods, they activate pain receptors. A few slides ago, I mentioned the sensory adaptation, and so taste receptors are also able to undergo rapid adaptation. And finally here, know the nerves associated with taste. Know the facial nerve sends the taste information. This is going to be from the anterior part of the tongue. Then we have the glossopharyngeal. This sends the information to the posterior part of the tongue. And the vagus nerve, this picks up the taste information from the pharyngeal region. The impulses are then carried to the medulla oblongata using these nerves. and the information stops in the thalamus. And finally, the cortex for taste information is the insula.